Welcome back to WMMBAM.com. Keyword video gets you to our video on demand section where you're watching this interview with Republican District 1 County Commission candidate Richard Ware. We talked to Robin Fisher, the Democrat incumbent in the race, on the show earlier. Some confusion in this race about getting him scheduled and getting him in here, so we've had to make a couple of accommodations. Richard, glad we can get you in here on the video this morning. Let's talk about what brought you into this race in the District 1 County Commission seat.
Well, the number one thing is we have a county commissioner who, politically is totally opposed to my values as a conservative Republican. I don't believe in expanding government. I don't believe in taxing the citizens and balancing government's budget simply on their backs. When it is that you're having hard times, you have to control the costs, and you have to cut things back. You have to find ways to expand the rights of the citizen and expand business without doing it by taking money out of the economy, which is what my opponent proposed to and has begun to do.
Are you referring to those economic development zones, those types of things?
I'm definitely against the economic development zone. The idea that you're going to give likely $70 to $100 million over the life of the plan's CRA, for all intents and purposes, is what it is. And you're going to give that control over that and the spending of $500,000 at a time to 9 individuals that are not elected. They're appointed people, and you creating more bureaucracy, less accountability. If it is you want to do something like that, let's take it, let's put it on a voter referendum, allow the voters to approve a plan that's put out in front of them before it gets passed, and allow them to control how it is money can be spent and on the types of things that they want it spent on. We've done it in this county with EELs, with school referendums, with parks referendums, had these things on the ballot, dedicated a certain amount of millage so we knew approximately the amount of money. It wasn't an uncapped amount, and got it approved by the voters and went on from there. And that's the kind of thing that you would do, because economic development, as he's proposed with this, goes beyond the general scope of local government, which is public safety and transportation. So you need to have voter approval before it is that you can go down that road.
All right, very good. As you look at other things the Commission's done, where are the big problems you see, and what do you think the solutions are?
Well, obviously the millage rate is a big problem. Over the last couple of years, they raised it approximately 30%. This year, being an election year, they're not proposing to raise it at all. I wonder why that is, being an election year. But the idea that we're continuing to balance the cost of government, that they expanded exponentially in this county due to the housing boom, and when they had a lot of dollars coming in, spent a lot of money and expanded government. So now that the money's gone away, they're resistant to reducing government. At the same time, they claim that they've reduced budgets, but spending at the same time has gone up over that same period of time. So, the idea is you can balance a budget, you can have the budget number say whatever you want, but if the spending doesn't cut back too, you're not really saving anything.
All right, very good. Are there areas where you see that the county can cut and do so without hurting services in the county? Sure.
We have a number of areas. Number one area that I would look to cut some is our parks department. Presently, we have about 100-plus parks that are just run by the county, plus another 75 to 100 run by cities. And of the parks run by the county, about 25% of them are pretty much unutilized, yet they're fully maintained. We can cut that back. We can look at alternative labor sources, look at doing some outsourcing, possibly even inmate labor from the jail to maintain some of the parks, and not to continually spend money on underutilized and unutilized parks. Why not have some natural areas, much like we do with the EELs properties? Also, we have a fleet department that, quite honestly, the amount they charge to the other departments is not justifiable in today's economy. When you're talking $80+ an hour for a labor rate in our fleet department, that's not really competitive. When you're talking about 500 to 1,000 vehicles, you can do that much better through the private sector. And there's a number of other smaller areas.
All right, very good. Let's talk about your experience, who you are, where you come from, what qualifies you to take this seat.
Okay, well, have a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in public administration. I have 20-plus years in management, managing everything from mom-and-pop companies all the way up to multi-million-dollar operations. And I tend to, come at things with a conservative viewpoint. My idea is you control the cost, and my idea is to bring those, both my education and my experience together. When they teach the public administration side of things, they teach proliferation of government and to expand government. And they teach you is you're supposed to go in there and do that. Well, that's probably why I didn't pursue that as a line of work, because I'm just diametrically opposed to doing that.
Sure.
And they say, well, you have to follow whatever the policymakers tell you to do. Well, instead of going and being a follower, I'm out here being a leader, trying to become the policymaker so that we can try and save the taxpayers and some money and try and run the county government more efficiently.
Take it you're not a fan of the strong county mayor or county manager, city manager forms of government we tend to have around here.
Well, the council manager form of government that we have, it's not conducive in large populations to having accountability. The way it's structured, it works better when you're talking about smaller communities, probably under 15,000, 20,000.
Can't afford to pay a full-time mayor what it would take to have it as a job, that kind of thing.
Right, because even when you need to have that elected accountability to the top guy. And right now we don't have that in this county, and we don't have that in most of our cities in this county. But
do you see staff driving the county commission as opposed to the other way around right now?
Most definitely. When you look at the way that they've presented their budget, says here's what we want, or here the helicopter idea that we just had. Oh, we want $6.3 million for these 2 French helicopters. Well, I always thought to myself, well, why is it that we're buying helicopters from out of the country, number one? Why are we spending so much money? They didn't seem to present anything in the public meeting anyway that gave us an idea that there was alternatives. And obviously there are alternatives. There's fixed-wing aircraft, there's used aircraft, and there's probably even American suppliers of rotary-wing aircraft that we could have used. Though what I understand, the biggest problem was that we have only had about 330 hours worth of flight time. That's what they're looking to replace from last year.
Sounds like a lot of money for 330 hours of flight time.
That's correct. And the biggest problem, one, with the aircraft, it was actually with the spray equipment being broken more often than the aircraft. So maybe the idea was let's look at replacing some spray equipment, not the aircraft. And, they didn't talk to the folks in this county, like the helicopter school up in Titusville. They didn't talk to them about what some alternatives, what their recommendations might have been. They may have been able to use the helicopter school to do some of their spraying because it gives them more flight hours. They're already flying around. Trust me, they're over my house all the time. There's some availability there in terms of they're flying over some of these areas you got to spray. Why not see if they'd be willing to, for a minimal cost, continue some of that operation, take it out of county hands.
Very good. As you are out campaigning, have you been involved in other people's campaigns in the past? What, do you have any political experience, so to speak?
Well, the first campaign I worked on was Daniel Webster's 1982 campaign for the Florida House.
You were what, 12?
10.
Okay, I was close.
The idea at that time was, he went to the church that I went to the school for, and we all got behind him and we're out putting signs together and putting them in people's yards, that kind of thing. So I've been involved ever since then. I'm a child of Reagan, basically, because that was who was president when I grew up. So I had those conservative views, and that's the way I view government and trying to control government and trying to keep it out of our back pockets. One of the biggest things, one of the hugest difference between my opponent and myself is he's willing to throw money to bring employers. My idea is we deregulate to bring employers. We have costs and fees and regulations that make it almost impossible to start businesses in Titusville and in a lot of areas of the North County. When you're talking impact fees in the tens of thousands of dollars, you're talking spending $5,000, $10,000 just to get all your licenses and approvals and permits to open a business. You have to sell an awful lot of product once it is you open just to catch back up.
Cover your fees. Yeah, that's very true. What are you hearing as you talk to the voters in District 1 as you go out and campaign? What are they saying to you?
Well, a lot of them are pretty much uninformed, unfortunately. The fact of life is in the economies that we have today, they're looking at the big ticket, which is the presidential race, and by the time you get down to the county commission race, a lot of times they're just exhausted and aren't following it as much as I wish they were. But when I
so you get a chance to educate them then a little bit anyway.
That's it.
If they'll talk to you and listen to you.
That's correct.
And are they doing that?
Yeah, and most of the time when I talk to people, they're receptive to, wow, I didn't know that this was the situation. I didn't know this is what was going on with the county. So it's a matter of trying to get out there, as you say, and educate the voters about what's really happening here in Brevard County.
You feel like you're talking to enough of them to make a difference? Do you think you can win this thing?
Well, I think it's going to depend on who shows up to vote. Obviously, this is a coattails race, just like the last one was 4 years ago. My opponent won by 313 votes, riding on Obama's coattails. If we have a strong Romney number of voters come out, I have a really good shot at it. The idea that if it is that we see a lot of Republicans stay home because they think it's already been won or whatever, like we saw 4 years ago, then I'm probably going to be in trouble because they redo the districts and added more Democrats to the district. So the Republicans are actually outnumbered in my district now.
And Robin was just telling us earlier that he was outnumbered by 10,000 when you look at just pure registrations when he was elected. So
I'm not sure if that was true when you looked at it. The big number up there is the independent voter because the number is about 3,000 more Democrats than Republicans right presently, but there's over 13,000 independents there.
So you got to reach those NPAs and they can swing it. Richard Ware, thanks for taking the time. Good to have you in here, and good luck. We'll see what happens in the District 1 race.
I appreciate it, and come back anytime you want.
All right, well, we'll do that. And thank you for being here at WMMBAM.com. Keyword video. We've got more interviews throughout this season, so keep checking back.